going to have two back-to-back talks now that are connected because they're both kind of about AI and LLM and all this. Okay, I should probably clarify all these acronyms. LLM, large language model. AI, artificial insemination. Okay, so we'll have the two talks about AI. And then after the break, we're going to have a panel. We'll get both the speakers back up on stage and we'll take your questions. And I hope you have questions because it'll be better than my questions, I'll tell you that. So first up, we're going to look at the visual side of generative tools. And to guide us through a demo with Midjourney, we're going to have Matt. Matt is a creative director at Brave Bison. He's been around the block doing digital design for decades now. And his talk has the somewhat dystopian title, How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Machine. You can too. Take it away, Matt Garbutt, everyone.
Well, hello. First off, a couple of disclaimers. I'll get those out of the way. I'm a generalist, so kind of one of those T-shaped people. I'm not necessarily a designer or a UX person, or even a copywriter or an art director. I'm kind of all of those. And the topic at hand today is something that whenever I've talked to anyone about over the last couple of days, there's always been a hell of a lot of discussion about it. And I think it's fair to say that you guys are all experts as well, and we're all learning this AI thing as we go. I often start these talks by asking people to raise their hands if they haven't used the machine, or if they're dabbling, or if they're somewhere down the rabbit hole. But I don't think I'll bother asking that question today because you guys are all using it. It's fair to say, and some of you are far more expert than I am. So that being said, we're all learning it together. And I think it's also worth asking the question of where we are now with this tooling. We've been through quite a period of hype and excitement with it, particularly around the end of last year. But I think we're kind of through the wow phase now, and we're probably into the how phase from all of the conversations I'm having around the place. You know, how are we going to implement it and what we're going to implement? And not necessarily why should we implement. I think the reasons for implementing it in our agency processes and our creative processes are pretty clear. But interestingly, where we are right now is also a place where Midjourney does hands with 4 fingers and 1 thumb, which it never used to do. So that's a good thing. So I'll talk a little bit about my journey with AI. I don't know if anyone can relate to this or not, but back in September last year, and I should say, as Jeremy said, my kind of feeder drug, if you like, for AI to get me down the rabbit hole was Midjourney. I'm sure people in the room use it. And I also use ChatGPT, but it's it was the one that got me going. Midjourney was. And if I cast my mind back to last September kind of time, I felt that the creative practice wasn't really too much under threat by AI. You know, Midjourney wasn't turning out the eye-popping visuals that it is now. ChatGPT wasn't even around, but we at the agency had built a copy generation bot based on GPT-3. But the kind of copy it was turning out was not that exciting. It was pretty workmanlike, you know, and so I felt that we had time. We had a bit of runway to get used to it. But then November happened, and by December, we were all using ChatGPT. Midjourney version 4 had come out, and the world changed almost overnight, actually. So it was very much a case of night and day, and a bunch of realizations hit. And I'll talk about those realizations in a minute. But this is just to chart the progress of in a visual way, of a year's worth of Midjourney. So the beta release, beta, I don't know, anyway. The beta release last February through to version 5 in March this year. That's 13 months of development. And if we look at version 1, 2, and 3, you know, you can see the progress there, right? But then we get to version 4 and we're several orders of magnitude more advanced than we were in version 3. And then version 5 hit, and it's, you know, it's the curve is exponential, beyond exponential. So going back to November, December, which is, I'm sure, when a bunch of people in this room started getting down and dirty with this stuff as well. I realized that if I didn't start to use its tooling and get comfy and familiar with it, then someone using AI would take my job. That old phrase, the machine's not going to take your job, but someone using it will. And I wanted to grasp, and did grasp, the learning curve of prompt craft, particularly in Midjourney, which I think is fair to say is a different way and style of prompting to ChatGPT, and a different way of working with the machine. And the other thing was, I figured that the learning curve for the tooling would steepen. So it was good to be an early adopter, basically, because as more tools got released onto the market and more features and functions were added to those tools, then it would get more progressively difficult for people to get into it and to learn it. But it is still something that anyone can learn themselves, I maintain. So by January, after spending every waking moment of Christmas when I wasn't cooking a meal or drinking a glass of wine, in Midjourney particularly, felt brave and bold enough to put a few predictions out there, none of which were particularly groundbreaking, because at that point I think it was clear that 2023 was going to be the breakout year of AI, and that absolutely is proving to be the case. I think it's kind of undeniable at this point. And these are some of the predictions that I was considering, and one, that there'd be an investment bubble, and that is absolutely proved to be the case. There are billions upon billions of dollars being poured into this space at the moment. It's an arms race, and I'm sure we'll talk about that in the panel later on. Proliferation was another thing, of course. I already mentioned that the new tools get released on an insanely frequent basis, daily, hourly. My feed in particular is clogged up with, this latest tool. You've got to try this. What did I see on the way up here the day before? A tool that would plugged into Unreal Engine, that would make you a video game based off of a couple of text prompts, for example. But also the tooling would make us more prolific as creatives and creators as well, because we're going to have much more material to work with based on the feedback that we get from the machine. And that it would make us faster. We'd get off the blank page faster, which is going to be something that I'll probably say about 10 or 15 times over the next 20 minutes or so. And that there would be demand for prompt engineers, people who know how to work with the machine and talk to it and get a result out of it. So back in late March, I talked to a couple of recruiters about how they were seeing this demand for prompt engineers. And the one on the left here said there's big demand, but a very limited supply. She's building out a talent roster right now, and that art directors in particular, who are using Midjourney, are commanding up to about 20% higher day rates, and that art directors are excited about the tooling, but copywriters are nervous. Now, I can kind of see why copywriters might be a bit nervous about it, but I don't necessarily agree that has to be the case. And losing the audience, our head of copy here today, and is sort of coming around to my way of thinking, I think. And then I talked to another recruiter on the left here. She said, we have no demand, no candidates with it, we're not looking at it, but by the end of about a 20-minute conversation, she thought that maybe we should be. So I guess what that goes to show is that we are still early, despite all of this conversation, which is so noisy. And as I say, when you're in this rabbit hole, as I'm sure many others of you are in the room, it's almost overwhelming on a daily basis to see all of this stuff hit you. And I kind of oftentimes need about half a day to get through my newsfeed to understand what's going on and what I should be looking at and not looking at. So I figured it might be worth asking the question, what makes an AI whisperer? And there are many things that make an AI whisperer, but I think these 4 things are perhaps the most important. And I'll be happy to have a conversation with anyone about this if one ensued. But I think it's very much a case of right brain, left brain. So in terms of generative AI in particular, we need that creative spark, that initial thought to get us going. We need to have a goal or a purpose or something to perform and get some output from the machine. We need an idea, essentially, particularly with Midjourney, but also with ChatGPT if we're writing copy or we're trying to get to an end result. So the creative part has to come from the human. We have to bring the machine into life, of course. It's like the difference between a particle wave being brought into reality. Then very much a case of quality in, quality out. I've I've talked to many of you in the room and sort of given away a lot of this talk in conversation over the last sort of 48 hours. But I think everyone I've talked to has agreed that it is very much a case of quality in, quality out. You need to know how to talk to the machine to get the result, and the result is very much completely directly dependent on what the input is, which leads on to the next point, which is about experience and curiosity and creativity. And again, particularly with, I would say, mid-journey, but also with the large language models, it's almost the case that the older you are, or the more experienced you are, or the more curious you are, the better chance you've got of getting a good result out of it. And what I mean by that is that you're going to have either a career's worth or many years' worth of experience to draw on of reference points such as artists, designers, styles, product, design, architecture, etc., or whatever it might be, which you can then use to plug back into the machine to get the result that you're after. And then time spent with the machine. You know, there's no substitute for spending time with any tool to get used to it and get familiar with it and get good at it. So this is where we kind of shoot off a little bit, and I'm taking a massive risk today by doing a little bit of a live demo of some software that was released to me for this particular talk. We'll get to that in a bit. But the question is, shall we try a little design and build with AI? And I'm not expecting a show of hands, because if anyone says no, then I haven't got to talk, so forget that. So, so what we'll try and do is go through a little process. It's going to be accelerated, it's going to be fast, it's going to be top level. But for anyone in the room who might be a bit curious and maybe hasn't delved as deep as others, then there might be a bit of eye-opening to do. So the project in question, we're gonna try this, and this is kind of a synthesis, if you like, of a project that we've got going on for New Balance at the moment, parts of it at least. We're imagining that New Balance want to do a piece of work, a campaign, for and with the London Marathon, which is an event that they sponsor, headline, every year. And for that, we're going to make some content, and then we're going to go through a kind of a light UX process, and then we're going to make some wireframes, which is the really scary bit, because that's where the demo comes in. So in terms of making the content, well, we'll talk about prompt craft, basically. I've talked about what makes a good prompt engineer, particularly in mid-journey, and let's break that down to show you what I mean in a practical way. What we're going to do as part of this content for the site is we're going to create a limited edition shoe for the London Marathon by New Balance, themed on or with something to do with London. In this case, our London theme is a guy called Christopher Rayburn, who is a London-based fashion designer. He makes streetwear, very kind of pared-back, minimal look. And we're going to invoke his name. But to start with, in green at the top, we're going to upload a picture of the shoes that we want to model our output on, which is a New Balance 1080. It's kind of their Rolls-Royce of running shoes. So we upload the image into Midjourney, we get the URL of that, and then we can call that out as our model when we play it back into the machine. So the machine now knows that it needs to make a shoe that looks exactly like this, or as close to it as possible. Then we're going to get to the subject details of the prompt. We want it to be, we want to call this out again, that it's a New Balance running shoe, to double down on that, to make absolutely damn sure that the machine knows it gives us the N logo, essentially, on the shoe. We want it to be navy blue tones, dolphin pattern fly knit, made of recycled material, designed by Christopher Rayburn, because those are all things, like big themes of what Christopher's work is. And then there's a nice kind of fit here, because New Balance, I hesitate to say this given the talk from Livon this morning, but they are into sustainability and they do use recycled material wherever possible. So Christopher does the same thing. So there's a link there. Yeah, so that's our subject details. But then we get to the technical stuff. So by now I think you're getting the picture that we are calling all sorts of reference points into our prompt to get a result back. But then we get to the technical details. We want dramatic studio lighting, studio photography. We want a London map in the background, preferably in this product shot. We're making a product shot here. We don't necessarily need to say it's a product shot, but we're telling it that by wanting it to be studio photography, that's what we're after. And then we want it to be shot on a high-end studio camera with an 80mm lens, aperture f4. So all of that stuff, all of that experience is now coming to bear and hopefully, bringing us some fruit. There we go. So Midjourney, hands up who's used Midjourney in the room, actually. Let's go to that place. Quite a lot of you. Right, so you'll know then that it's not just a case of sticking a prompt in and 2 minutes later you've got an output, which is what we hear a lot of people saying, and it's not the case at all. It's an iterative process we go through of both crafting the prompt and working with our output, and oftentimes going through variations and re-rolls of the output to get to a place that we're happy with. So this was probably the result of about 2 to 3 hours work. And there were more selects that we took off the back of this. But we can see I think, a really striking, good-looking product shot that we've got here. We've got the N logo that's coming through loud and proud. The lighting looks great. We've got that London background in the map. We've got some kind of organic patterning happening on the shoe as well. And interestingly, we've got this orange sole. Now, if I go back to the point I made about invoking Christopher Robin's name, just by calling out his name, we've interrogated the data set, and the data set's come back and said, hey, Christopher Robin designs with, I don't know, neutral tones, and he has a monogram that features orange, which in this case is coming through on the sole of the shoe. So that's what a well-constructed prompt looks like, whereas a not so well-constructed prompt might look something like this. A photo of a New Balance running shoe, could be any New Balance running shoe, blue and orange. And if you're in Midjourney, in Discord, you're seeing good prompts, bad prompts coming. So you very quickly get a flavor of what's going to work and what's not going to work for people. But someone new to it might go like super generic and super wide like this to start with. And this is what you get. Something super generic and wide. The machine doesn't know what to do with that, so it makes it up as it goes along. Not any particular type of shoe, all sorts of stuff going on. This weird kind of Midjourney stuff that used to happen in version 4 on the right-hand side as well. So yeah, not such a good result. So that's our start to this project. We've got some content that we can use in the site. But what about UX? Here's where it might get sticky for me. Bear with me. What we're going to do now is go through a process with ChatGPT to see if we can, as an experiment, see if we can do some kind of light touch UX with it. So we'll start with a prompt. And again, we need to prompt the machine well. We need to give it a role, which in this case is a UX researcher. So it knows what role it should be fulfilling in this task. And the task is to create yourself a short list of tasks to build out a set of all possible personas, that's the task, for a website owned by New Balance that does all of these other things. And the format that I want the task presented in is a list. So what it actually did, it went away and I think it came back with 10 tasks that it would perform to build out the persona. The top 2 of which are here. There's not space to list them all, of course. But those top 2 are market and user research and competitor analysis. So we said to the machine, okay, go away, do that market research and competitor analysis, and come back to us with as many user personas as you think you can build for that website that we've described. And it came back with a list of 6. Marathon enthusiast, casual runner, fitness enthusiast, health-motivated runner, social runner, and the first-time marathoner. Now, do you remember when I said copywriters are a little bit worried? Don't need to be, because those nicknames actually suck, right? So we asked ChatGPT then to go through a process of building us out some more kind of, interesting names, and then going through a further process to build us out a persona. And we asked it, okay, fine, given what you know so far, tell us the headers that you think we should have on our persona to create it. And through iteration, we get to a point where we've added a couple in, taken a couple out, and done our bit of steering the machine. Now, this is an experiment, so I've taken a strong lead from the machine in this experiment, but I will make the point, and I'm sure Jeremy's going to ask me later about, who's in control here. We are still in control. And this I see very much as a tool in our toolbox, a new tool that we're learning about as we go to do all of the things that we talked about earlier on. So we get to our Endurance Explorer. We've got a bunch of stuff up there. All looks good for a persona. It's actually given us marks 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 of order of priority of the different goals that this persona might want to achieve on the site. And now it'd be great if we could get a picture of our persona, right? So we can ask ChatGPT. So using the following formula, create a prompt for use in Midjourney. And then we give it a formula to return that prompt in, which we're then going to copy-paste over to Midjourney to make the picture of our runner. That prompt is here. Photo of a determined 32-year-old woman. Now, I don't know if anyone else can see the problem here, but there's like a massive glaring issue. Anyone want to call it out? We've got some very white women here. Yeah. So the problem that we've got with the machine is it's biased. It's inherently biased because it's trained on the internet, and the internet is a human construct, and the internet, just as humans do, has biases. So I would love it to be more diverse, but it's not. And there are projects going on to make models that are more diverse in terms of generative work at the moment. There's one campaign in particular which actually ASICs are running, which is quite interesting. So let's modify the prompt and ask for an Asian woman. And we get that. So now we know what our Endurance Explorer Lucy looks like. And then we can work with the machine some more, and we get user stories for Lucy. We get a user journey for her. This is just part of it. There were, I don't know, about that much of a user journey. And then we get flows and site structure and more about Lucy. So it can construct us a lot. And it gives us a starting point again. It's then there for us to take over and craft and develop into something that we can use either as a basis or a foundation, something to go forward with. And actually, if I think about a lot of the subject matter and a lot of the talk over the last couple of days when we've been talking about heavyweight user research projects that agencies a lot of the time just don't have capacity to do, then this gives us the ability to at least start that process or synthesize it, Actually, we were on a call this morning with a client to this design and build project. It's a website. And there was conversation about the length of our discovery process and UX process within that. And at the end of the conversation, we basically said, look, we're going to use this as a benchmark to push that through in a more accelerated way. We're still going to have control over it. We're still going to perform our own critical analysis on it and fact check it, but we're going to use it to get us further, faster. This is the scary bit. So what about design? And I think it's fair to say that if I wasn't worried about about creative in general, the creative practice around about last September, October time, then should designers be worried now? And I don't know if they should be worried, just as creatives shouldn't be worried. But we are coming to a place where generative design tools are starting to hit the airwaves, so to speak. There are a few of them around. One of them is called Wizard, and UI-Zard, Wizard. And they've given us special access to have a look at this tool today as part of this talk, which was kind of them because, as with many AI tools out there, there's a gargantuan wait list to get access to it. So we here have asked for an e-commerce website that sells running shoes and clothing, which also offers training and nutrition advice. The site has a big hero area at the top, and products are organized by category below. Drum roll, please. Here it is. Can we see that? No, we can't. Great. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to quit PowerPoint. There we go. So what the tool's done is, from that prompt, it's built us this. And what this is 5 screens which is kind of an e-commerce flow, right? We've got a homepage here. We've got that hero area. Now, is it a great hero area? Maybe not. But then we've got our categories, we've got the products here, all of which is editable. If I want to put a new image in there, I can. It's gone as far as making us a prototype. So if we wanted to prototype this, we can preview it and click through to one of the categories, I think, yeah. And a bunch of other stuff as well. There's these AI features over here, so we can go into wireframe mode, for example, if we want to get lo-fi and start jigging around with that. We can also turn on a focus predictor. It's kind of like a Hotjar thing. It's kind of obvious what it does, and it's not in any way groundbreaking. We can go to our image generator. This is plugged into Stable Diffusion. So let's say we're not seeing enough New Balance shoes on here. We can ask for a New Balance. I think I've spelled that right. No, I haven't. We can ask for a New Balance running shoe. And within a few seconds, it should generate us a running shoe for New Balance. And as I say, plugged into Stable Diffusion, not Discord. So Stable Diffusion maybe not so good as Midjourney, which is kind of the gold standard, if you like, for generative AI for me. And then a bunch of other stuff, which you've probably seen already. So we've got the building blocks of, I wouldn't say a design system, but we've got components here that we can start to work with as well, which we can add to the site pretty easily as well, just dragging and dropping. And we can generate text for it as well. So it's plugged into an LLM, and we can generate text suggestions for areas that we don't like the look of as well. So pretty powerful. Is it perfect? No. Is it prototypey? Yes. This is version 1. I think it's got a long way to go, right? It's not... this is another thing that's been a theme of the conversations I've had over the last couple of days, which is that AI at the moment is kind of a hacky workflow. There's no kind of smooth path through it. There are different tools that do different jobs that plug in at different points in our workflow. And this is another example of that, because it doesn't export to Figma. You'd love it to, right? And I think they're working on it. So that you could take editable work out of here and into Figma to continue the path. So at the moment, you have to export as flats, and then if you want to trace it, you can. But nevertheless, if we put ourselves back a year, could we have imagined that there'd be a tool out there that we could input some text in that would generate us some wireframes in the space of about 30 seconds? I doubt it. So I think I've lost my slides now, but I was just kind of end on how I think of AI, and I've talked about it at length, but I think it's worth just kind of driving that point home, that how I see it is this. I think it's our wingman. It's our creative wingman. It doesn't replace us. It augments us. It makes us faster. It's another tool in our box. That might not be controversial, and there might be other zealots out there that say it's now going to be the be-all and end-all, but I don't think it's going away. That much is for sure. So I do think that any curious souls are in a good place and should be explorers of these tools and tech. So therefore, yeah, I think it's our creative wingman. And that's me. Thank you very much. Grab my water.
So, wireframing, yeah. Generating assets like imagery,
yeah.
Sure, absolutely. Even maybe some prototypes. But user research?
Yeah, I thought you'd want to get into that.
I mean, come on, I get it. Oh, it costs too much money. We can't afford user research. The solution is not. I know. Let's not do it with users.
Well, I guess the answer to that is that the tools are based on other research that's been done out there on the internet. So do we trust that research or not is ultimately the question when you get the results back.
That's not how user research works.
Maybe not. But if we're in a place where we don't have a pot of gold or a huge amount of money to go away and do that and to run focus groups or testing sessions, etc., then what's our fallback if not some synthesis of that?
But isn't there a danger then you think, well, we've done something, so we fool ourselves into thinking we've done user research?
Well, that's where the human comes in, because we can we're still capable of critical analysis to say, hey, actually that doesn't really jive with our experience of what this client is or what we know about their customers already, or any other data points that we might have access to, such as GA or their first-party data, for example.
The point of user research is not to confirm what you think you already know. It's to throw up what you didn't know,
Right.
the unexpected. And if it's only feeding on what's already out there, as with the designs it produces, it can't give you something unexpected.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think if you're going to go on a full path, then yeah, you need to talk to real people. But again, I'll sort of fall back to the point that we're not always able to do that. So what's our next best bet? And the other thing is, a lot of clients are quite happy to be good enough. They don't necessarily need to be Tesco Bank or Patagonia or some of the products that, for example, Dan was talking about and showing us yesterday. They're okay with a good enough experience.
Okay, so these two tools help with that kind of mediocre benchmark.
I think so, but it's the world we live in, isn't it? A lot of the time, it's not a race to the bottom; it's a race to the middle. And that's how it is. I think.
Actually, in general, though, I find the focus on the tool worrying, in the sense that in any other area of problem solving, whether it's design, development, if someone said, oh, we haven't yet even begun to examine the problem, but whatever we do, we're going to use this tool. Like if a developer said, we don't know how we're going to build it, but we're definitely using this framework, that would really worry me that you're making that decision. And it seems like you're kind of looking for reasons to use a tool where actually you want the problem to suggest the right tool.
No, I don't think I'm saying that. I think I'm saying if we've got a problem and AI can help us solve that problem in a way that befits the project or the mission or the brief, then there's a place for it. I'm not saying that we put the tool first and then we put the work afterwards or the brief afterwards. We're not shoehorning here. We're not putting the cart before the horse. No.
So there's some projects we go, oh well, I wouldn't use Midjourney here.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Do you think as a general rule, I'm looking at a lot of the examples you've given, is it these kind of tools, these generative tools, maybe better suited for the divergent stages, the early stages, where you're trying to throw a lot of stuff at the wall before you converge on a solution? So
Absolutely.
Wireframing, the prototyping stuff.
Yeah.
So when it comes to more like production stuff you'd actually put in front of end users, would you be a lot more wary of using these tools?
Okay, so here's where I think design and build separates out from what's going on in I'll call it the campaigning world, where at the moment in the campaigning world, in the trad creative agency world.
It's like advertising?
Yes, okay. Advertising, thank you. Better name for it. We're seeing a lot of agencies and clients pick it up, and some of it's really gimmicky, the stuff that they're doing, but there's work out there now that is completely generated either in Midjourney or through a process of working with ChatGPT. For example, Bex did a campaign recently to mark their 150th anniversary, where they put the whole campaign generation, execution, and production over into the machine's hands, starting with ChatGPT and moving through to Midjourney, and then playing out the media strategy with a ChatGPT as well. However, in the design world, I don't think we're there yet. Absolutely, and what we've just looked at there is not the solution. And again, I think I'll make the point again. This is stuff that for the most part gets us off the blank page. It's it's the antidote to writer's block or that blank page syndrome. It gives us a start. Yeah. I
mean, for all the improvements in Midjourney, and it's pretty amazing to see the evolution in such a short space of time, there is still a kind of indefinable look.
Yes, there is.
Do you think, like, a few years we'll look back at a time and we'll say, it'll look so dated?
I don't know. Well, I think in terms of, you're talking about the X factor, right? The emotion right? That you can, if I'm doing a portrait, for example, that wouldn't come through in an AI image. Yeah, I think it is still the case, but it's getting so much better so quickly that it's almost indiscernible. And everyone will have seen news about deepfakes, etc. That in terms of the images, and then that Sony photography award winner a few weeks ago, everyone will have seen that. Did it fool the judges? I'm not sure. I think my own theory is that was a publicity stunt for both the photographer and the awards. But I think the point remains that we're getting to a stage where now it is actually difficult to pick apart an AI-generated image from real life.
Okay. Thank you, Matt. I haven't taken any questions from you because you're going to have plenty of time, because we're going to have a whole panel on large language models, artificial insemination, all that good stuff. That's coming up. But for now, please thank Matt Garbutt.